I think about it as an investment into your future. I quit playing video games and video games were expensive. I spent thousands of dollars on video games. Once I stopped doing that, I had so much more money that I didn't realize I had. Right. So money management is a huge deal when it comes to your cybersecurity career, because the more money you have, the more money you can invest into your career.
Hi, I'm Kyser Clark, and welcome to The Hacker's Cache, the show that decrypts the secrets of offensive security one bite at a time. Every week I invite you into the world of ethical hacking by interviewing leading offensive security practitioners. If you are a penetration tester, bug bounty hunter, red teamer, or blue teamer who wants to better understand the modern hacker mindset, whether you are new or experienced, this show is for you.
Hello, welcome to The Hacker's Cache. My name is Kyser Clark. I have over 6 years of experience in the cybersecurity field, and I currently work as a full-time penetration tester, also known as an ethical hacker, and I'm here to help you grow your hacking and cybersecurity knowledge. Today, in this episode, it's a very special episode. We're doing the first ever Q&A episode where you guys ask questions and I answer them on the show. And the way you can submit questions, you can do it in a few different ways. You can do it through the Discord channel. So I have a Discord server. If you don't know, you can find the link to the Discord server in the description/show notes and join the Discord. Anybody can join, and you can drop a question in the Hacker's Cache questions section. There's a dedicated section specifically for asking questions for this show. You can also ask questions in the comments on the YouTube channel. So any comment that's put in the YouTube channel will be considered for a question that is answered on the Q&A episodes of the Hacker's Cache. And then lastly, you can also email me at kyser@kyserclark.com if you want to ask a question that way. So with that being said, this is going to be a little bit different of a format, and I'm also going to get rid of a lot of the editing. So I usually edit out all my ums and all this stuff. I actually just said and I'm going to leave it in there because I'm trying to be better as a speaker. And because of that, I want to just leave in the raw audio, and I'm not going to edit these podcasts. And all of this is, for these Q&A episodes, are going to be unscripted for the most part. The only thing that's kind of scripted is the questions themselves. I can't memorize every single word of the question, and I don't want to misrepresent the question that's being asked. So I will be reading off my phone. If you're watching the video version, you'll see me look at my phone while I read the question to the audience, so the audience knows what the question is being asked, and then I'll put the phone down and answer the question. And while I have thought about these questions in advance, because I don't have anybody, giving me these questions to me, I have to kind of handpick the best ones. So I have thought about these a little bit, but I haven't written anything down, and I'm really just going to answer the question in the rawest, purest form possible. So with that being said, hopefully you enjoy the new format, and hopefully you enjoy these unedited versions of the Hacker's Cache, because personally, I want to be a better speaker in the real world. And if I leave editing as a crutch, then it's just going to make me a worse speaker over time. So I'm trying to eliminate that crutch and be a better speaker in person, because it's honestly something that's super important to me. So that's why we are not going to edit these episodes anymore. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the first question. And this first question is actually a question that is very unrelated to any other question that I've ever seen. And I think it's a very good one. So I'm excited for this first one. The question: why so many people turn to the dark side of cyber over legitimate cybersecurity and IT roles? Personal thoughts. Many of us are desperate. The world is an increasingly crazy place, and humanity is struggling to keep up with itself. Ease of access and the willingness to establish a channel creates a light at the end of the tunnel for most people, which the baddies exploit more than the good guys. Add that to the perceived anonymity provided by operating through networks. I believe people miscalculate risk versus reward and overestimate their liabilities. The most interesting thing about this to me is that the younger generations are showing exceptional prowess with tech, but sadly care much less about the consequences. I would love to see a professional's take on this topic. As I said, aside from the offhanded comment here and there about what a shame it is, I haven't seen much conversation on the subject. First of all, thank you so much for asking this question. It's a really good question to ask. And you're right, not a lot of people do talk about this topic much at all. And I'm going to take my best stab at it. I am no by no means an expert in cybercrime or crime in general, and I don't know what it's like to be a cyber criminal. Like other some there's are professionals in the field who used to be cyber criminals who went to prison for cybercrime and now they actually do good in the world. I'm not one of those people. I have never done cybercrime and it's never interested me. But the what I can say is this: like, why do people resort to cybercrime? And I think a lot of it has to do with, like, why do people do regular crime? Cybercrime, regular crime is almost the same thing, right? Why does a shoplifter take from the store instead of buying the goods from the store? Well, there's multiple reasons. Number one is they don't have the money and they can't afford it and they're desperate. That's a reason there. It's not a good reason, but it is a reason nonetheless. Another reason is the thrill of it. Crime is thrilling to people who do crime. Doing things you're not supposed to do is thrilling. And as someone who likes to break rules, I don't break laws, but I do like to break rules. And I don't like to follow guidelines if I don't have to. And I find it thrilling to um, go outside the bounds of guidelines because it is thrilling and it allows me to be unique, honestly. So I can kind of see, like, when it comes to breaking laws, like, why someone would want to do that because it's thrilling. Another reason is because they don't know any better, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes when there's teenagers out there and there's kids that would just take from the store and they just don't know any better, right? So maybe that's the same with cybercrime, but I think it's a little bit less of that. There have been people who have been arrested for cybercrime that didn't know it was a crime, right? And hacking into things illegally, they just didn't know any better and they suffered the consequences, and they found out, later on that, yeah, that's not allowed. So you can also, another analogy I like to think is, like, why do drug dealers exist? Why do people resort to dealing drugs? Like, you can go through school and go through college and whatever certifications. I'm not really versed in the medical field, so I don't really know what you have to do in order to become a pharmacist. But a pharmacist, honestly, is just a legal drug dealer, right? So why does someone deal drugs on the streets instead of being a pharmacist? They're really doing the same thing. They're selling drugs to people. Now the drugs are different and the means of them doing it is completely different, but in essence it's very similar, right? A pharmacist and a legal drug dealer. But why do they do it? Well, another reason is it's harder to become a pharmacist, right? It's easy to become a drug dealer. You can just buy some drugs on a dark net and then resell it on the streets. And to be a pharmacist, a legal drug dealer, it takes years and years of work, effort, into a career, into school, and then you have to go through, like, lengthy interview processes. So I think that's part of the reason too. Honestly, I think it's hard to break into the field. This is honestly one of the reasons why this podcast exists, to help people break in the field, because it's so difficult. And the reason why it's difficult is because it takes a lot of certifications, college degrees. You don't need college degrees. There's actually a question, we're gonna talk about that a little bit further in this episode, but a lot of people do value certifications and degrees and experience, and a lot of people struggle with that. And another thing you have to consider is, like, your social networking and your ability to do interviews well and working with a team. And there's some people that are really good with tech that just can't do all of that. And you need all of that, by the way. And some people will be missing one piece, and some people will be missing all the pieces. Whereas a cyber criminal, they can kind of operate on their own, and they don't really need to work as a team. They don't need to have this super cool resume. They don't need to have certifications. They don't need to have degrees. They don't need to know how to interview for a job, right? And that is might be part of the reason. I'm not saying it is part of the reason why people resort to cybercrime. That's just me thinking, like, it is hard to break in this field, and cybercrime is, there's no barrier to entry. Anybody, literally anybody right now can open up their laptop and get on a web browser and just start hacking things. Like, there's no barrier to entry, right? And then, like you said in the question, the anonymity of it, like, the internet is anonymous for the most part. There are ways to catch and find out who people are online. But another thing they have to consider is, like, there's no consequences for, like, threat actors, for example, in Russia and China and North Korea. hacking in the United States, there's no consequences for them, so they can just do it, and they're state sponsored most likely, and there's not a lot of cyber law being enforced internationally. So that's where I think the majority of threat actors are foreign countries to your country. And I'm in the United States, so I use that as an example. But like for example, if you're in Australia, like the chances of you getting hacked by an Australian are probably a little lower because there's consequences if that Australian gets caught hacking into an Australian company. But for example, someone in, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, they hack an Australian company, there's going to be little, if not any, consequences to that. So the 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 nations, there's no consequences or as high of consequences when cybercrime goes between nations like that. So I think that's a lot of it too. And another reason is there's a lot of money involved with cybercrime, right? If you listen, I forget the episode, but it was with Nathan Rice. I think it was episode 9. Don't call me on the episode, but it was with Nathan Rice. And I started out that episode. I put it in the beginning of the episode. One of the highlights was, I would be a millionaire right now. That's what he said. He was like, if this was a real crime, I would be a millionaire right now. And he basically phished a user and got internal access into his client's network as a red teamer, a legitimate, ethical, legal hacking pentester, red teamer, hacker. And he straight up said, like, yeah, if this is a real engagement, like if I was a cyber criminal, I would be a millionaire right now. Now, I don't know what his financial situation is, but the fact that he said I would be a millionaire right now implies that he's not currently a millionaire and he works in the legal and ethical realm. So that just kind of proves like there is more money in cybercrime. So it could be financially motivated as well. So you add all that up and you just get a recipe for what we see now, which is a influx of cybercrime. Hey, I wanted to tell you about my new cybersecurity insider list, where you get raw, unfiltered cybersecurity advice, tips, and hot takes, plus exclusive first looks at my content delivered directly to your inbox every single week. No fluff or spam, just valuable content. Head over to kyserclark.com/newsletter and level up your cybersecurity knowledge today. Once again, that's kyserclark.com/newsletter. There's also a link in the description. All right, now back to the show. So what do you think about Net Plus or CCNA for cybersecurity? So this is actually, in my opinion, kind of an easy question, but I can understand why you would be confused between the two. So Net Plus and CCNA, they're both networking certifications. Obviously, like the Cisco Certified Network Associate and CompTIA Network Plus. Those two certifications are both networking certifications. However, CCNA is a lot more difficult than the Network Plus. And honestly, with the CCNA, you don't really need a CCNA unless you are trying to be a cybersecurity engineer. So if you want to be a cybersecurity engineer, I think CCNA is something that you should be pursuing. And then you should even level up to like a CCNP security, Certified Network Professional, Cisco Certified Network Professional Security. And with the Network Plus, it's a lot easier. And it's very important to know networking in this field. It's been said a bunch of times. And I would say that you definitely want to know how to use network, how networks work. Because if you don't know how a network works, then you can't secure a network. And if you don't have at least Network Plus knowledge, then you're doing yourself and your company and your clients a disservice. So this is a little bit of a hot take, but if you don't know Network Plus knowledge, like if you're not at that level, which honestly is a basic level of networking, then you're not really securing networks the best way. You're not really qualified, in my opinion, to work on a network. Now, that's a hot take. That's a hot take. And I'm not saying you have to have Network Plus. I'm just saying you have to have Network Plus knowledge, which is two different things. And we're going to talk about certifications later on, and we're going to dive a little bit more into that about like having certifications and having the knowledge and all that. But if you don't have the knowledge, then you're really doing everybody around you a disservice. And you should definitely at least have Network Plus knowledge. You don't need a certification. So if you're trying to choose between the two, I would definitely get CCNA, even if you want, sorry, I would definitely get the Network Plus. Even if you want to get CCNA, get the Network Plus first, because CCNA is actually very difficult, and the Network Plus is going to help you out in the long run. And if you want to be a cybersecurity engineer, get your CCNA. Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I have the CCNA and I have the Network Plus. I have both of them. And the CCNA hasn't really played too much of a factor into my career, honestly, because what made the CCNA hard was the Cisco specific stuff, like configuring routers, configuring Cisco switches, and there's a lot of nuances with Cisco technology that you don't find in other technologies that you have to know for the CCNA. And that's what makes the CCNA hard. And the reason why the the CCNA hasn't been too beneficial for me is because I haven't touched a Cisco device in my career since I've gone. This is CCNA. So you see what I'm saying? So unless you're specifically working with Cisco stuff, then you probably shouldn't get a CCNA. Now, if you want to be a network engineer, definitely get your CCNA. But we're talking about cybersecurity and cybersecurity careers. Network engineering is not in the cybersecurity umbrella. It is a very valid IT role and definitely needed within the industry. So if you're interested in network engineering, definitely get the CCNA. I couldn't recommend it enough. But if you're just doing pretty much anything in cybersecurity, the Network Plus is definitely enough to get your feet wet in networking. It is enough. And then if you want to be a cybersecurity engineer, get the CCNA and then maybe even level up to the CCNP security. Next question. How many years does one need to collect a wall of certs like you? So I do have wall of certs and I'm proud of them. It's one of the reasons why I put them on the camera, because I'm some of my proudest achievements, honestly, and to kind of just give myself credibility, I guess. But I mean, how long does it take? It takes as long as it takes, right? And it's different for everybody. For me, I'm just over 6 years into my career. I'm going on 7 years now. I'm at like 6.5 right now. So that's how long it took me, all right? In But it could take you different amounts of time because you could have a different base starting knowledge. You could have a different personal life. You can have different relationships. You could have different family life. Like for me, I don't have a family, guys. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. So I can dedicate a lot of time to studying. And that's what I did for 6+ years. Is I just study. I spent so much time studying. And I could have got more certifications if I didn't get my college degree, right? I spent a lot of time on my college degree. So if I didn't go to college, then I would have more certifications. Another thing is I've traveled a lot too. So if I didn't do all that traveling and enjoying life a little bit, then I would have more certifications right now. So it really just depends on how much you're willing to sacrifice, right? I had to sacrifice personally. I quit playing video games for years. A matter of fact, I just got, I just bought my first TV since 2014. So I went 10 years without buying a TV. Just bought my first TV literally yesterday so I can play video games again, because I went so many years without playing video games that I I'm starting to miss it a little bit, for one, but for two is like I realize that like just because I work 24/7 doesn't mean I'm getting better results, and I've kind of included like, hey, I need to put in some break time, um because I think rest is kind of important now. And early in my career, I didn't play any video games at all, and that's what it took. It was a sacrifice I was willing to make. And then another thing is I stopped playing fantasy football, and I stopped watching NFL football games, and I stopped going to parties, and there was a lot of sacrifice. There was a lot of sacrifice, and I didn't sacrifice everything. Like I said, I did travel, and I did. I mean, I just got out of a 2.5 year relationship, so I was in a relationship for 2.5 years, and that obviously took up time. But one of the reasons why the relationship failed was because I spent so much time studying, right? So you gotta figure out what you're willing to sacrifice, and the more you sacrifice, the more certifications you get. But just because you have a lot of certifications, it isn't everything, right? Because uh, once you get 2, 3, 4, or 5, like extra ones on top of that really they don't do a whole lot for you. So there's if you're not familiar with the term, it's called law of diminishing returns. So the more you do, the less return you get. Right now, obviously, every certification is going to give you something, but each certification you get, it moves the needle less every single time, right? And I would say every certification is going to move the needle and help you get better every time you get a new certification, but every time you get a new one, it's going to move the needle less and less over time. So consider that fact as well. So overall, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of sacrifice. And if you're not willing to sacrifice things that you really enjoy and things you really like, then you'll never have wall certifications like me. So that's kind of where what happens. And like I said, certifications aren't everything. So to you, your family might be the most important thing. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't have a family, so I can't put time into something I don't have. So you know what I mean. So I would not be jealous of me having 13 certifications when you have 0 or 1 or whatever you have. Um, because you could have a family, you could have um, other priorities that are more important to you. But for me, my career is my top priority. I have nothing else. My career is my top priority in life. Straight up. There's nothing else more important to me. And that sounds a little selfish, but like I said, I don't have family. I'm not married and I don't have kids, so I'm allowed to be a little selfish. But if you have a family you have to take care of, then putting your career ahead of your family might not be the best idea. And there's a lot of people that have successful careers who have families that will say, "Yeah, I'll never put my career in front of my family," and they still do good in their career. So you just got to find the balance that works for you. There's this thing that talks about work-life balance, and for me, there really isn't a work-life balance. It's just work. It's just work and a little bit of life, like a small amount of life. Like they say, what's the saying? Work hard, play hard. Mine's like work hard, 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 and then play a little. That's me. So that's that's kind of my life in a nutshell. And hopefully you got some value out of that. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. I don't really have much more to say on that one. Hopefully I helped you out. And good luck with your career endeavors. Next question. Hi, Kyser. I kind of have the impression that if you want to work in this field of cybersecurity, you need to be able to afford those certs. I assume that maybe you can learn those concepts somewhere for free, but to actually land a job, I'm not sure how to showcase my knowledge to the person that's going to hire me. That's why my idea is to try to get hired as a web developer, because at least I have some projects to showcase to my potential employer, raise some money, get the certs, and then attempt to transition careers. What do you think? Thank you. That's a very valid point. You see someone like me who has a bunch of certs, and you're like, wow, how do you afford that? And certs are expensive. Certs are expensive. And what I will say is, you don't need to have certifications. There's people in this field that have 0 certifications. There's people who work in this field don't have a college degree. There's people who don't have a college degree or certifications that are working in the field. The thing that matters most is the skill set, right? And a certification just proves that you have a skill set. Now, why you don't need certifications and you don't need a degree, they definitely help, because an employer can look at my resume and they know my skill sets just by looking at the resume. And it is easier to prove competency if you have a certification in that area, which is why I have so much, because I personally don't know how to showcase to an employer what my skills are. And that's one of the reasons why I have so many certifications, because I feel like, well, it's undeniable, right? My OCP, it's like, well, it's undeniable that I hacked into, you know, 4 computers, because I think, yeah, that's what you have to have. You have to have 4 out of 6 computers broken into to pass OCP. It's undeniable that I did that. And then I wrote a report on it too. And because I had the certification, that you can't question that. It's a fact, right? Now, if I didn't have that certification, it's like, well, how many computers did you hack? And it's like, well, I hacked 1,000,000. Like, what's there to prove that, right? So that's why I like certifications. And that I think certifications do move the needle for your career significantly, and that's why I always talk about them and advocate for them. And when it comes to affording certifications, I get it. They're very expensive. I was lucky to be healthy enough to join the military, right? Because that's kind of the only prerequisite to joining the military is just be a healthy person. And I was born in good health, and I also had I don't want to say I was born into a good work ethic, but I learned work ethic from adults when I was a child. So I had this work ethic built into my system, and I was lucky to have that. But I didn't have any money either. I mean, I literally joined the Air Force, active duty. I had $1,000 in my bank account, guys. Um, and then when I got out of basic training, there was none because my bills was I had credit card debt and I had car payments. Like I got done with basic training and I had $0. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I had nothing. And the reason why I have so many certifications is because the Air Force, they give you education funding, which is how I got my degree. That's how I got my Security Plus. They paid for that in full, and that's how I got a lot of my certifications. And as I promoted within the ranks in the Air Force, I started to build up a savings account, and then I could go purchase training such as the OSCP and the EJPT, the OSWP, and the certifications that weren't covered. So while all my certifications, so let me rephrase that. Not all my certifications were paid for by the Air Force. I would say maybe 60% of them were paid for by the Air Force. That's just a rough estimate. And then some of them I paid for myself. And the way I did that was I save up money. I made sacrifices. Again, that word sacrifice. I made sacrifices. I didn't buy video games anymore. I didn't buy a big screen TV. Like I said, I just bought my first TV for the first time in 10 years yesterday. And I don't drive a fancy car. I drive a 2012 Nissan Versa, guys, with a bumper that's basically falling off. Like I don't drive a fancy car, and I don't buy a new phone every year. I buy a smartphone every 4 years. And the reason why I do that is because the security updates, or if I drop it in the ocean, which I have done. I dropped my phone in the ocean, completely destroyed my phone. So, um, yeah, I don't buy a lot of these things you see other people buy. I don't have a Netflix subscription. I don't have a Hulu subscription. I don't buy coffee all the time every day. Like this kind of stuff. There's small amounts of money, but they kill you in the long run. I make my own coffee at home. No, don't get me wrong. When I'm traveling or if I'm in a hurry, like I'll go buy a coffee at Starbucks or whatever. But when it comes to like the day to day grind, I make my coffee at home, man. I try not to eat out that much, and I really do everything I can to save money because when I bought my um, OffSec Unlimited subscription, which was like $5,200, which is the first time I purchased it. I've done it twice now. That was a huge stretch for me. That OffSec subscription is worth more than my car. So, and that just came from just sacrificing, just saving the money, right? And that's a huge word. It's sacrifice, and I might not be able to accumulate that money, but I will say this: like if you have a smartphone and have a Netflix subscription and um you're eating out all the time, it's like you have enough money to buy the cert. You just are choosing to spend your money on things that don't matter. Like if you're on Amazon, you're buying new stuff all the time. Like for me, like I only buy stuff if I need it, right? Uh, I mean, absolutely need it, like for stuff around the house. Like let's say you like to cook, and it's like, oh, this knife set would be cool, but it's $200 knife set. It's like, well, why can't you just use your old knife set? It doesn't work as good, right? But you get the job done with the old knife set. That's just an example I can think of, and I make those kind of sacrifices all the time, right? My house doesn't have the latest and greatest technology; it never has, and I spend a lot of money on my education, and that's been the best investment I ever made. Don't think about it spending money; think about it as an investment into your future. And like I said, I quit playing video games, and video games are expensive. I spent thousands of dollars on video games. You know, game consoles, graphics cards for your computer. Video games are $60 a pop. I'd buy several a month, and overall, it's like, dude, once I stopped doing that, I had I had so much more money that I didn't realize I had, right? So now some people might not be in a position to even make those sacrifices, and that's where you got to focus on upping your income. So focus on your income and trying to make more money. And for me, that was getting out of my dead end job and going into the military and then promoting within the military, because even when I joined the military, I was still making not that much money. And then I focused on promoting in the military and then really understanding like how to manage my money. And I got out of credit card debt. I paid off my car and I haven't gotten a loan since. So money management is a huge deal when it comes to your cybersecurity career, because the more money you have, the more money you can invest into your career. So, and like that sounds like a little bit privileged, but like I said, guys, when I got out of base spring, I had $0, literally $0 in my bank account. So it's not like I had all this money just get to me. I just learned how to manage my money more properly, right? Um, and I used it wisely. Now that's kind of a long-winded answer, but let me just put it this way: if you're in a position where you just can't afford things, um, I understand that, especially if you're in another country and you're not in the United States. That's another thing that I was lucky. I was lucky to be born in the United States, the land of opportunity. And if I was in a different country, I'd be in probably a completely different situation right now. But because I had because I was born in the United States and I was able, and I was healthy, I could join the military. It really set me up for success. But I still had to put in the work, and I still had to learn discipline in work and in my finances. But you don't have to have certifications. You can prove competency in other ways. It's just harder, right? I'm not gonna sit here and say you don't need. I'm not gonna say money isn't everything. Money does make things a lot easier for sure. But like I said, if you have $1,000 smartphone and you buy a new smartphone every year, and you have a Netflix subscription, a Hulu subscription, you have a car payment for a super, like let's say you have a super nice car. It's like you don't need that nice car. Like, a brand new car costs $30,000, right? You can buy so many certs with that. You know what I mean? And me, I'm driving a $4,500 car that I paid cash for, right? And that's the reason why I can afford the training that I have, because I chose to not drive a fancy car, right? So that has a lot to do with it. So I know that's probably not the best answer, because not everybody can just accumulate the money, right? Because you have to have an income. So if you're in that situation, you figure out a way to increase your income, right? There's all kinds of opportunity. Even if you're not in the United States, there's still opportunity for you to work and make money. So I would say if you're in a situation where you're just not pulling in the money, then just increase your work ethic, increase um your salary the best way possible. But you don't need to have certifications. It just makes it easier, right? And if you feel like you're a little discouraged for not having so many certifications, then I understand that. But at some point you have to just figure out how to break in the field. And there are ways to do it with and without certifications. Either way, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. No one said this was easy. It's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is because I want to show people like it's not easy, dude. It's not. Right? I thought it was. I thought it was going to be easy. I'm like, oh, there's millions and millions of unfilled jobs, and the unemployment rate 0%, and all you need is a certification or two, and you're going to land a six-figure job. And that is not the case. That is not the case. And a lot of people tell you that, and that's one of the reasons why I make the content that I do, is to tell you like that's a lie. That's a lie to get you to buy training. And don't get me wrong, the training is helps you get a job, and training is worth it, as someone who has a lot of certifications and education, a degree. Uh, yeah, yeah, it's definitely hard, right? But I mean, it's like that for other fields too. It's you know what I mean. Like if you want to be a doctor, like you got to go to school. So, um, right. And sometimes life isn't fair. Sometimes you don't have the money to afford an education, and that's just the way it is. But coming from someone who had $0 in their bank account a few years ago, like you can do it. You can do it. You just got to find a way. Work hard and save every penny that you get and use it wisely and focus on increasing your income, right? Like, I mean, in the United States, like you can drive Uber and make money, and you can use that as a side hustle. And there's tons of jobs out there, right? There's actually a jobs shortage, right? And some of the jobs aren't, you know, fun jobs. For example, like I see a lot of fast food places hiring. They can't find people to work, and they're giving these people $15 an hour. And I'm like, why can't they find people to work for $15 an hour? My first job, I made $7.30 an hour washing dishes, and I did that for 3 years, dude. 3 years. I washed dishes for $7.30 an hour, and that that was minimum wage in Ohio at the time. I don't even know what the minimum wage is now, but that's what it was at the time back in 2010. Was when I got my first job at 16 years old, and I just learned how to. Well, I wasted a lot of my money back then, and as I increased my salary, I started to realize like, oh, I can make my money work for me, right? And that was like a huge turning point in my life is when I realized like, oh, I can take money and use that to make more money by investing it in, in stocks and bonds. And I invested in a crypto too, but this isn't a finance channel. But the most important investment I ever made was in myself, in my training, 100%. And if you feel like you're too good to go work an extra fast food job, then you got the wrong mentality, right? No one, everyone's got to start somewhere, right? And even if you are older in age and you have nothing right now, like go get that fast food restaurant and work. And there's so many opportunities to make money nowadays. And and it's harder today because the economy is rough. The economy is in a rough spot. I will say that everything's so expensive, right? And it's hard to have excess money at the end of the month for sure. But if you are spending time playing video games, if you're spending time watching Netflix, then then you have no one to blame but yourself, right? And like I said, I made those sacrifices. I literally, like I said, I bought my first TV yesterday, and I'm at the point now. It's like, oh man, I'm doing pretty good in life right now. Like I can maybe take a step back and kind of relax a little bit and enjoy life a little bit. But it took me 6 years to get there, over 6 years to get there, and I grinded for 6 years, and I'm sacrificed for 6 years, and it took a long time, dude. So you can make it. You just gotta make those sacrifices. You gotta put in the hard work, and you have to learn how to manage your money. I cannot stress that enough because you'll be surprised on how much money you're wasting if you do a budget. So, if you want more advice on finances, I would recommend Dave Ramsey. If you haven't checked out Dave Ramsey's content, then you're messing up. If you want to learn how to get out of debt and actually save money and feel like you are getting ahead in life, check out Dave Ramsey's content. My only regret in life, one of my biggest regrets, is I wish I would have found Dave Ramsey sooner. Once I started applying his principles, it's like, wow, I have so much extra money because I'm not foolishly spending it on video games and coffees and eating out all the time. And that sounds like a horrible life, and it does suck for a little bit, right? But in the end, it's going to work out in your favor. So the sacrifices are worth it. It's a long explanation, and this one's supposed to be about money. This is supposed to be about cybersecurity, but your training is part of your career, and money is part of the training. So that was a long-winded answer, and I was probably rambling a little bit, but hopefully that helps people out. The moral of the story is save your money and work hard. Go get go get a second job. Go get a third job. Whatever you have to do, whatever it takes, right? I've worked a full-time job and with side jobs pretty much my entire life. There hasn't been a time where I haven't been employed. So just work. And I haven't worked in between the dishwashing and the military career. I was working at an oil refinery, sandblasting and painting and removing asbestos. So um, I didn't enjoy that job at all, but I did it, and it got me to where I am today. So hopefully that helps you out there. And yeah, if you have any questions and you want to see on the next Q&A episodes, we're going to do a Q&A episode once a month. And yeah, send the questions on Discord and on the YouTube comments, and you can email me at kyserclark.com. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening. If you haven't shared the podcast yet with your friends, please do so. That would help out the podcast tremendously. And I will see you on the next episode. Until then, peace out. Take care. Have a good one. Kyser out.